Hi, everyone. I'm Doreen Striley, Community Outreach Director at AARP North Dakota, and I'm so glad you joined us today for this Six Pillars of Brain Health webinar. For more than 65 years, AARP has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans, and we are continuing that work each and every day. Please note the Zoom features for this webinar, including the Q&A, where we will encourage you to ask your questions during the program. The chat is also there, so if you'd like to use the chat, you can do that as well, and we will then address as many questions as we can along the way. So we are excited to have you all here, and I'm really excited to introduce our presenter today, and welcome to Cheryl Thompson. Cheryl is from Fargo, and she is an AARP Speakers Bureau volunteer. She was formerly with the North Dakota University System and the North Dakota Bankers Association, which is where I met her, and I've known her a long time, and we've worked together for quite some time. So Cheryl, thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks, Doreen. It's a pleasure to be here and share some news about brain health.
Awesome. I know you have a great program, and we're going to get started here in just a second and learn more about brain health, which I'm really looking forward to as well. And just a reminder, everyone, we are going to cover all your questions and address as much as we can at the end. So feel free to put those questions in either the Q&A or in the chat, which should be along the bottom of your screen. So with that, we are going to get going, Cheryl, and I'm going to let you take it away here just as soon as I get the share going here. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Doreen. Now, we're going to cover the 6 pillars of brain health, but before we do, next slide, Doreen, please. I want to just point out that this webinar is intended back, Doreen.
Oops, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's on me.
Is intended to be informational and educational and does not include any medical advice. So if you have any questions or concerns regarding the information presented here today, we ask that you contact your medical provider. Next slide, please. Okay, the good news. We always hear about the bad news regarding brain health lately, but the good news is at one point, research showed that scientists believed that we had all the brain cells we really needed at the time of our birth, but that's not true. Our brain is constantly changing and can create new brain cells and nerve cells. And did you know that only 30% of physical aging can be attributed to our genes? The rest, we may have control over other factors. Next slide, please. So our agenda, what we will be covering today, is based on research from AARP and the Global Health on Brain Research and Health. And they include to be social, engage your brain, manage stress, ongoing exercise, restorative sleep, and eating right. Next slide, please. So why is brain health so important? Well, we hear a lot today about mental health, and then we hear about dementia and Alzheimer's. So it's important to develop some more cognitive skills and such with our brain, just like what we would do exercising for our heart and other parts of our body. So brain health is important because we can add life to our years, makes us rethink what we want to do in retirement, and especially with skyrocketing healthcare costs, and brain research is continually ongoing. Next slide, please. Okay, so our first pillar is how to stay socially engaged. And studies suggest that people who have good social networks live longer and are physically and mentally healthier. And connecting with people face to face adds meaning and purpose to our lives. And I think we realized this during COVID when we were isolated, and probably our only source of communication may have been through online media such as this and FaceTime, Zoom, and whatever. Next slide, please. So, what are some of the ways we can be social? Well, you can get involved by joining a club or participating in sports. We have all heard a lot about pickleball lately, haven't we? Attend community events. Consider adopting a pet or pet sitting. And they've always stressing too, become a foster pet person and foster a pet for a while. Volunteer with a local nonprofit. As this photo shows, this gentleman is volunteering at either a library or a school, and they're always looking for help there. Organize a regular virtual game night or book club and attend virtual community events. Next slide, please. So this is something for you to think about, and you can share in the chat area, and we'll talk about this at the end of the program, but think of ways how you are staying socially engaged. Next slide, please. So you can think about that, and I'm going to put up this slide on AARP resources for connection, and I believe Doreen is going to provide these following our presentation today, right, Doreen, some of the resources?
Yes, we will. We certainly will. In the
Okay.
follow-up email, we will do that.
Okay, thank you. So AARP has some good connections for you on volunteer opportunities and even a listing of virtual community center events. So regardless of where you live, if it's not near like Fargo, Bismarck, Minot, or some of the major cities, if you're in a rural area and belong to AARP, there's some other opportunities for you in virtual community center events. Then there's the AARP Friendly Voice. What this is, if you call between the hours of 9 to 5 in your time zone, there will be somebody there to visit and talk with you, which is kind of nice if you're looking for a friendly voice. Now, social media is okay too for connections, but it doesn't replace the face-to-face interaction we get, which sometimes helps stimulate your brain. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk about engaging our brains. The importance of cognitive development, especially when you can challenge your brain and challenge your thinking. So, what are some things we can do? Next slide, please. Here's some good ideas or suggestions. Take or teach a class, and there's also a lot of community ed classes. Another thing I want to point out is the university system. Some of the campuses across the state, and that's the North Dakota University system, will waive tuition requirements if you want to attend a class. Now, they all don't do this, but if you contact the registrar admissions office and ask if they waive tuition, and it might be for certain classes, like say English Lit, but they probably aren't going to do it for like a medical class or some of those. You can learn a new language, dance, or a musical instrument. And as far as a musical instrument, maybe it's something you used to play in high school or college, you want to take it up again, or maybe you always wanted to learn how to play piano, and that's an opportunity. Try complex arts and crafts. A lot of community ed have programs available for that. And I noticed in our area, there's a lot of stained glass window classes going on. Play challenging card or board games. I have a 100-year-old aunt, yes, 100 years, and every afternoon she gets together with a neighbor and they play the card game Skip Bowl, and that really keeps her brain going and active. Now, as far as other things, reading is also a good way to challenge your brain, but research has suggested that if you're going to read a book, fiction is better than nonfiction. And the reason is your memory is challenged by fiction, because you got to learn the plot and the characters, as opposed to nonfiction, because you might have a tendency to skip around in a nonfiction. Next slide, please. So just remember, you're never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. That's good food for thought. Next slide, please. Oh, here we are. Stress, pillar 3. That's always an issue. A lot of people thought that, hey, when you retire, I won't have as much stress. I don't have to deal with work. But then there's other stresses that come around, such as health insurance, maybe caring for an elderly parent, or maybe you're caring for some other children or other relatives. So how can we manage this stress? One thing is to exercise regularly, smile and laugh. Laughing is really a good way to exercise your muscles too. Distract yourself with music and reading, have some comforting music playing in the background. Seek out green spaces. Now in North Dakota, we don't have too many green spaces during the winter time, but there's some other options you can do. Maybe go to a museum. There's the North Dakota Heritage Center in Bismarck. Maybe go attend a garden show or some of the other boat shows and some of those going on this time of year in one of the neighboring towns. So, next slide, please. Other ways you can help manage stress is friends, confide in friends, have somebody to visit with, be silent and still, and take breaks. Sometimes all it takes is just to sit down, do some meditation or breathing, and calm yourself. Next slide, please. This is one of my favorite, ongoing exercise. You need to get at least 150 minutes of exercise each week. But prior to starting an exercise program, remember to talk to your physician or healthcare provider to see if there's any limits. So physical activity will help increase circulation, not only in your body, but that circulation helps with your brain too, and helps reduce anxiety and improve sleep, and reduces the risk of diabetes, heart disease, depression, and stroke. And as we're going through here, by the end, you'll notice that a lot of the suggestions for tips and that for each of the pillars, they seem to intertwine with one another. So let's see. Next slide, please. We're going to talk about some ongoing exercise. Walking is one of the best exercises you can do. Then there's dancing, running, and biking. And did you know dancing research has indicated that it can boost brain health and help manage symptoms of neurocognitive and movement disorders? Dancing can. And other research from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine has even showed that dancing reduces brain atrophy. Now, if these are good ones, dancing, running, biking, strength training is really important as we get older. Here he's showing she's lifting weights. Tai Chi and yoga are great for balancing. And there's another exercise I want to talk to you about. Usually we're doing exercise for our legs, our arms, whatever, but how often do you hear about exercises for your hands? I'm taking an arthritis class, exercise class, and in there, one of the things that we talk about is exercising for our hands and fingers. And a good exercise you can do is like taking a tennis ball and squeeze it. And you can do this while you're watching TV, or even if you have some type of stress ball, to squeeze that as you're again watching TV. And if you follow along with me, I'm going to give you just a few practice exercises you can do. One is taking your hands, and then we're going to touch the tips, our fingertips, going all through the hands here. And you can also do that by watching TV. Another thing that we do in arthritis exercise class, we do a thing called like the claw, and then you spring out. So you kind of claw and spring out. And a third one is practicing the keyboard or piano. So we kind of go with our fingers back and forth like this, moving them, And don't forget the thumb either. All right. Now, let's see. Next slide. Okay. If you would put these, Doreen, you want these to be put in the chat, right? What are some ways you move and get exercise? And if you're from a rural area, I sure would like to find out what you do in those areas if you don't have a YMCA or other exercise facility. Does the school allow you in the winter to walk in the gym? Maybe you have a community building in a small town where you do get together and do some exercises like chair yoga or whatever. So please take a few minutes and jot down some ways you move and get exercise. Maybe it's even at your home, or maybe you get together with some friends and do some, you have a weekly walk group. And some other ideas that you can share with us. We'd like to hear about. And then we'll talk about that at the end of this presentation. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes here before I go to the next slide. Are we getting some responses coming in, Doreen?
We could take some more, put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A, folks.
Or
Yeah.
as we go along here, think about it and jot down some ideas, and maybe at the end you can fill it in too. All right, let's go on to the next one. Oh, Wendy sent something in. She does a weekly meetup with girlfriends where we get together and eat out at a different place. So that's a good social activity too. All right, let's talk about pillar 5, restorative sleep. Now, years ago, they were talking about smoking, how that's a bad habit. And then when I was in the workplace, and that was not too long ago, it came out that sitting is the new smoking. In other words, that was just as bad as smoking. So now the new bad habit is lack of enough sleep. And that seems to be not constant, but a growing problem across the US. So it's very important to get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. And I don't know why, but they say a good time for sleeping is for older people is 10 to 11. But I think it just changes as we age, and whatever sleep schedule you have, maybe you go to bed earlier, like 8 to 9, but you still get your 7 to 8 hours and wake up between 5 and 6 a.m. or whatever. And it's also important, if you have chronic sleep issues or problems, that you visit with your healthcare provider about that. And learn to accept changes. Sleep seems to be more easily interrupted as we get older, and the body's internal clock shifts. All right, next slide, please. Now, there are some things we can do to make sure you develop good sleep habits. One is adjust caffeine intake, and they say not to have caffeine after 12 noon because of the after effects keep going on. It's hard to do that if you like coffee, or like me, I like tea. Keep pets that disturb sleep out of the bedroom. Restrict fluids and food 3 hours before going to bed. And keep electronic devices out of the bedroom. That's hard to do sometimes if you fall asleep with your phone, music playing, or you fall asleep with the TV on. They don't like it because of the light. You're not closing down the light then to signal to your brain, hey, it's time to go to sleep. So next slide, please. All right, I'm going to give you an exercise, and hopefully you won't fall asleep after we're done with it. But if you're laying in bed and you're having trouble falling asleep, this is a breathing exercise developed by Dr. Andrew Weil. And I'll read it to you, and if you want to try it, and as I read through it, go ahead. So the first one is you're going to exhale through your mouth, making a whooshing sound, like that. Then you're going to close your lips and inhale through your nose, counting to 4 in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next step then, hold your breath for 7 seconds. And this is the most important part of this exercise. After that, exhale with another whooshing sound for a count of 8. Now, you can do 4 full cycles of these and maybe up to 10. And if you start feeling sleepy somewhere in between, go ahead and stop. So hopefully if you tried this, none of you have fallen asleep, and we'll continue on with us through the rest of this presentation. All right, I think now we have a poll. Doreen, you gonna post the poll? Here's the questions. I'll wait till you let me know. Yeah. What do you do to fall asleep at night? So we're gonna take the poll now, and then we'll give the responses. Do you read a book? Do you do a TV with a timer on? Music, radio, or CD or phone with timer? Do you use a sleep app? Or is there another noise cancellation device that you use? And then maybe you do something else. I know melatonin is popular as far as an over-the-counter sleep aid. Again, if you take anything over the counter, you should talk to your medical provider, or even your pharmacist, to see if that will interact with any current medication you're taking. So Doreen, did you have the poll posted enough? What do we have? 2 out of 2 say they read a book, TV with timer. Nobody does anything else? Okay. All right. Let's move on then. Our 6th pillar, and our final one, is eating right. And our diet does affect brain health as far as eating less meat, salt, and sweets. And instead, we should choose more fish, nuts, grains, beans, leafy green vegetables, and healthy fats like olive oil. Next slide, please. All right, some eating plans that are popular for dieting: the Mediterranean diet, which really includes a lot of the foods I just mentioned on the last slide. And then there's the DASH diet, which is a dietary approach to stop hypertension, which is high blood pressure diet. Then there's the MIND diet, which is a combination of the two, the DASH and the Mediterranean. Next slide, please. All right. They say some foods that may support brain health: kale, spinach, and broccoli. I'd like to comment here and say, when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, vegetables we had mainly were corn, carrots, lettuce, green beans, peas. You didn't hear much about kale, spinach, and broccoli, or you might have heard of spinach if you watched the Popeye commercial or cartoon. Whole berries are great, whether they're frozen or fresh. And then vinegar, lemon, herbs, and spices are great to marinate foods or even to put on salads. Salmon is a good fish, walnuts, and almonds. Now remember though, too, to limit your intake of walnuts and almonds so you don't overdo it just for fat and such. All right. Next slide, please. Now, our topic today would not be complete without some of the risks or threats to brain health. And they include smoking, depression. Certain medications can interfere with your with your cognitive skills, or even in your memory. Diabetes, again, the importance of eating a good diet. Hearing and vision loss. Now they say hearing, lack of hearing should be, can affect dementia. I suppose that's because you're not concentrating or hearing what's going on. And of course, heart disease. Next slide, please. Now, here are some tips. They may help you focus with brain development, cognitive skills, and so on. Establish a routine, meaning keeping your keys or your phone or other items in the same place. You see, a lot of people have a some place when they come in the door to hang their keys or a bowl to put them in it and stuff, establishing a routine. And I heard the other day on TV, they're coming out too now with a lanyard or some type of necklace to put your phone on or to carry it like a purse. So you won't lose it. It's there all the time. Pay attention to what you're doing. Stay focused. Reverse the doorway effect. I'm going to tell you about the doorway effect. How many times have you been in one room, say you're in the living room, and say, oh, where are my glasses? Oh, I bet you I left them in the kitchen. And you go into the kitchen and you notice something else, like the dishes need to be done, or there's some groceries that you forgot to put away. Now, what you've done is what they call the doorway effect. You crossed over that event boundary and you changed your environment so it distracts your brain from what you really went to get. And you notice if you do that, if you forget what you went to the kitchen for, you'll go back to the living room. Now, what did I forget? And if I go back there, I'll remember it. So a good thing to do to avoid this revert doorway effect is just to concentrate and say to yourself, get my glasses, get my glasses, get my glasses. Go into the kitchen, get your glasses, then do some of your other things. And that's just like becoming, the importance of becoming a monotasker, avoiding multitasking, which is the same of you're changing your environment again, too many things you're juggling at the same time. To help you keep focused, remember, you can take breaks and use calendars, reminders, and alarms. I pointed out here, if you get the AARP magazine, they had a great article in the last issue, January, about 6 memory boosters, which really kind of complements what we talked about here today. All right, let's go to the next slide. You know, we're all, I think, worried at some point whether or not, am I going to get dementia or Alzheimer's? So let's consider what's considered normal aging and what's not. Some of the normal aging signals are you forgot to pay a bill. You forgot a name, but remember it later. It's like, what was that person in our class again, our high school class, that became a good standout in basketball, something like that. Flipping over a word or two, misplacing your keys or phone. Again, the importance of putting it in establishing routine where you keep these. Getting lost, but finding your way via map or GPS. Some of the concerns or worrisome signs, if you forget to pay many bills each month, you forget that you know someone. If that, oh, that's your sister, your daughter, whatever. Difficulty following a conversation, losing things and being unable to track them down, and entirely forgetting how to get home. Now, if you have any concerns here, you might say, oh, I guess I'm not too bad off. Mine falls into the normal aging list here. Even if you have any concerns, you should contact or visit with your healthcare provider to they check it out. Because maybe, next slide, please. There could be another factor that's causing your memory problems, such as head injury, such as a concussion, blood clots, tumors, or infections in the brain. I know of somebody who even had a bad sinus infection that went into their brain and caused some problems. So maybe, get things checked out. Thyroid, kidney, or liver problems. Another uh, um, problem, or I should say, not a disease really, well, it is, urinary tract infection, UTI, can really scramble your memory and such if you don't get that taken care of. Medication side effects, or not taking your medication at the proper time or every day. Mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety, alcohol or drug misuse, sleep problems. I know if I go too many days in a row with not enough sleep, that does affect my thinking or my brain. So sleep is like we mentioned earlier, is a major problem nowadays. Low levels of important nutrients such as vitamin B12. If you're going to take any vitamin or supplement, again, talk to your doctor if it's okay to do so, or even check with your pharmacist to see if those will interfere or interact with other medication you're taking. Not eating enough healthy foods. If you focus too much on sugary foods and such, that's not so good. It can cause memory problems. All right, let's go to the next slide. So we talked about the 6 pillars of brain health. Again, it's to be social, engage your brain, manage stress, exercise is important, and restorative sleep and eating right. Now, we also visited about some of the brain health risks and tips for improving memory. And we'll talk about this personal commitment and resources. Next slide, Doreen. Okay, we have a few resources here, and Doreen, if you would just click on the brain health one, ARP one, just to show people here what that page looks like and what's contained. I don't know, can you do that, or are we having problems with that?
Yes, I am doing it. I'm gonna stop sharing it, share a different screen here
Okay.
so that I can show you that. Thanks for your patience. Okay. So now you
Okay,
should be seeing that.
Here's the Brain Health Resource Center. It's got things on, it even got a cognitive assessment, diet and exercise, sleep, stress, and more. We talked about those. And then some other things about strokes, anxiety, depression, dementia, and more tips and tools for brain health on this page. Okay. All right, you can go back to that resource slide. And then we're going to go to the next slide. You might have to. All right, here's some other resources, and Doreen will include that in the mailing when she sends it out too. Exercise videos. And one I want to point out is the NDSU extension Aging Well. Doreen, can you go to that one, or? All right. So if you scroll down on this one, they have some topics on health and well-being, family caregiving, aging in place. And then there's some exercise programs. They talk about fit and strong, stepping on, and here's some Tai Chi classes across the state. And here you'll notice they even list some of the stepping on workshops and others workshops available. So, and that's in our state. So that's great that we have that resource available. Okay. There's also silver sneakers. Sometimes depending upon your health insurance plan, if it will include silver sneakers so you can get in free to some, like YMCA or other fitness places. And then, of course, the Alzheimer's Association. Next slide, please. So what can you do today? Be mentally, physically, and socially active with special attention to diet, better sleep, and stress reduction. Start with some small changes, like taking a 10-minute walk or adding a serving of vegetables. Write down what you will do and when, like your goals. Set your goals. I'm going to start doing this or whatever, or checking out maybe exercise classes or other opportunities for community ed. Get support from family, friends, or community groups. All right, next slide. We want to thank you for joining us, but before we finish up here, want to talk about some of the survey results that we had earlier. We were asking about places you exercise. For that, Doreen, did we get any input on that, or people wanted
Let's
to?
check those polls again and see if we had any more. It was generally people like to read before bed, and I'm one that puts a sleep timer on my TV, but then I also wear an eye mask so I don't see the light from the TV. So that's me.
I noticed too, when living here in town, there seems to be a lot more light, street light and such. And then in the summer, when go to the farm, boy, is it dark. There's no street lights or whatever, so that really does help. But any of the attendees say anything if they're from rural areas, and if so, where do they do their exercising? Do they have a place to go in town, or they get together with friends, or?
I don't have any comments on that. I do see though that the chat is disabled. Sorry about that. Feel free to just put any comments in the Q&A. We'll address that. So sorry about that. But one question we have here, Cheryl, from one of the attendees is asking about how strenuous the exercise has to be.
I would check with your doctor or your physician on how, on what you can take, what you're allotted to, or whatever. Before I started, my arthritis water exercise class, which I'm fortunate enough to do, I had been going through some cancer treatment, so I didn't want to really start back into what I had been doing before. So I checked with my doctor, and it's an easy, access to working my way up to more strenuous type of exercise. But they say 30 minutes a day, and they talk about walking. Even walking is a good exercise. So it doesn't have to really be that strenuous, but whatever your body can handle. And then again, too, with weights, if you're going to start doing some weight work, start small with, the hand weights, and check with your doctor if you have any problems with your shoulders or arms, or that might bother that.
Right.
Okay.
But I don't think it has to be, you don't have to be breaking a sweat all the time to make exercise count either. I think anything you do is moving in the right direction. Any movement is moving in the right direction. So.
Well, and remember too, they used to do that 10,000 steps a day programs and such, so that's not really strenuous, but okay. Any other questions?
We do have some other comments here too, Cheryl. I got a couple more questions, but then I do have some comments from others saying that their group exercise meetups are my stress relief. And I think that's true. I mean, I do some of that during the week, once or twice a week, and that is just so much fun. And, you feel like, oh, I gotta be there, at this time. And kind of people are looking for you, so.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like an item on your agenda too, it's like a regular meeting. I've got to go. I put this on my calendar and such.
Yeah,
So,
scheduling your exercise on a calendar and getting it on there, it like will say, okay, this is
you're
like something I
committed.
need to do
Yeah,
today. Yeah.
yeah.
We have another one here too. Somebody's commenting that before falling asleep, I occasionally listen to an audiobook and set a timer or listen to relaxing music. That's
Oh,
nice.
that's good. Yeah.
That's a good one. And then another person says they use stair steps. Did mention using stair steps. Maybe climbing stairs as an exercise. That sounds like a really, really good one too. So, but a couple other questions we had here too, Cheryl. How does hearing impairment really affect brain health? Have you heard or what is your thoughts on, what are
What
your
it
thoughts on that?
is you're not getting the clear message, so your brain understands what's going on. And I think that's what it is. It's just not clear, clear to you. So you're not getting the full picture.
Sure, sure. And it's just like everything just kind of goes over you and you're not
Right.
part
Yeah.
of the whole thing and you're missing out and, your family feels sad about that too. So I remember those times when, it's like encourage those hearing tests along the way and people are so much happier too when they can hear, better. So it's a good thing.
And sometimes too, certain medications can interfere with your hearing. So it's important also to, get it checked.
Yeah, didn't even think of that, but yeah, sure. We have another question here about, I'm thinking about retirement, but some friends have told me it's stressful, not sure what to do. And you did allude to that you better kind of, there's still stressors that
Well,
come
yeah,
along with life
I
all the
I
time.
noticed too, there are some, I don't know if AARP has anything or planning for retirement online courses or articles.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but I know some of the community ed classes I've seen here in town provide information about that. But just even talking to other people that have retired, especially finding a health plan, health insurance, once you retire, if your office where you worked, provided that and what to do, and then Medicare. Always there's questions on that, and I think AARP has some resources available for that. And
You
uh,
bet. All of
so
the
I
above.
would say, yeah, and kind of think about what do you want to do when you retire, and things might change too. You might have a set plan, but your health might get in the way, or you might have to do some other things and and such, like taking care of grandkids or taking care of an aging parent, whatever. And
Right.
sometimes it helps. I know for me, after I retired, I was fortunate enough about 6 months after I retired, my boss asked if I could come back in and work on a project. So I did for about a year, but that was about enough. So sometimes easing out of your work helps too. If you can cut back a few hours and ease out of it too, helps ease into retirement a lot better. So,
That's some good advice. And yeah, that's really good. Well, Cheryl, this has just been great. Thank you again for joining me and providing so much really good information. And I know you worked hard and studied this a lot and know a lot about this brain health topic. So we really, really appreciate you sharing that with our participants today. And for all the others that may not be with us, we did record this program. So we will have that available on our YouTube channel afterward. And we'll share that with you. It's youtube.com/AARPND. So please watch for an email following this tomorrow. You'll get the email and it'll have a feedback survey. We'd like to hear your thoughts on it and suggestions for other programming, whatever you want to share with us. Because we want to make sure our events meet your needs and we're giving you what you're looking for in all of this stuff. So, and then we're also, as Cheryl mentioned, we're going to have some links to some of the resources. And then there's also a couple handouts that are going to be included in that email that are really good. One is on brain health and exercise, and another one is also talking about active lifestyle and things like that. So I think you'll enjoy those really good resources from AARP. But thank you again. And also all of our future programs, our upcoming programs, you can find at aarp.org/ND events, just as a reminder. And again, that'll also be in your email too. But again, thank you so much, Cheryl. This has been just great. Nice to connect with you. And we just really appreciate your time and energy here today. And thank you all for joining us today. This was 6 Pillars of Brain Health, brought to you by AARP North Dakota. Thanks and have a great day.